Four friends on a quick adventure to find the missing Ray Brower's body. The trials and tribulations of the journey unfold as they also get to understand one another and themselves on a deeper level. Do you want to see a dead body? Because tonight we do a discussion of sorts on Rob Reiner's coming of age classic, Stand By Me. This is a production that doesn't intend to see a dead body. And you were listening to a sorry, Vern, I guess a more experienced shopper could have gotten more for your 7 cents edition of Just for Flicks. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Patty B. Ooh, and it sounds like a ring of thunderstorms happening outside. Not where I'm at least. Anyway, I am excited to finally break down a Rob Reiner movie. This is kind of cool. But with me, as always, is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. How are we doing tonight, man?
You know what? I'm excited as well. I know we haven't really talked about Rob Reiner films, and it's sad that, rest in peace, Rob Reiner. You will be truly missed. But we also talked about, too, this is the first time we've ever covered a Stephen King story. We've never done that for this podcast. So I'm excited to do this story because this is a story that I don't feel a lot of people know that is a Stephen King story. This is kind of one of them that fly under that radar. I know we've talked about it in the past just by ourselves. When you really think of Stephen King films too, what do you think about? You think of something like It. You think of something like Carrie or Cujo.
The Shining.
Yeah, The Shining. But people forget he wrote The Shawshank Redemption. He wrote The Green Mile, and he wrote Stand By Me. That's why I said, it's sad that 3 of his biggest movies that are based off his books are not even his horror films. It's his coming of age stories, but this is also a first because I have never seen this movie before this was one I always want to put on I know I talked with you beforehand when we decided to do this, because we're going to kind of treat this like we did with Robert Redford. Pat chose Stand By Me, and I'm going to reveal the next pick later on in the video of what I chose. But the thing was, I have never seen Stand By Me, and the movie that I pitched, you have not really seen or sat through from beginning to end. So this will be kind of a first for both of us to kind of get a new perspective compared to an old perspective, or like we've watched it many times perspective. It is a very fast movie. It
is.
Yeah, it's like by the time you look,
you also, I think you get kind of invested into it. I think it definitely lures you in, and then I think you're just following the story as it's unveiling and everything. And you're 50 minutes in, you're like, oh wow, there's only like 20 minutes left. So that's one thing I love about this movie too. Just a quick watch.
Now, Pat, we're gonna go into your favorite part of the movie before we kind of go into different points that we want to talk about. What is the budget, Pat? What do you think the budget of this film is?
Cheap, I'm hoping. I'm gonna go ahead and say this movie probably costs about $3.5 to $4 million.
More.
$9 million.
A little less. You're right there. It's 8. $8 million was for the budget for this film. Opening weekend is what kind of shocked me. Opening weekend only got them $242,000, pretty much roughed up, or $243,000 roughed up, or rounded up. The gross worldwide, though, was $53,525,035. So they made their money and more off this. Yeah, this movie, that's what I said. Like, for what they had, the budget for this film, it wasn't a terrible film.
No, it wasn't.
And again, this is a movie I think we talked too about a lot that has a star-studded cast without realizing it's a star-studded cast. Let's go, Pat, mention some of the actors in this film.
I mean, you got Kiefer Sutherland, you got Will Wheaton, Corey Feldman, River Phoenix, Jerry O'Connell. Who am I missing? I think there's somebody else. Oh, John Cusack. He has a very small role in this as Gordy's brother.
Even though
Dennis.
it's small, I feel it's one of the more important roles.
It's a very impactful that's the thing, I think I was telling you off air is one of my favorite things about this is the flashbacks. The flashbacks really give you a more in-depth perception of who the characters are and what the backgrounds are, especially
Yeah.
with Gordy. But,
Even Richard Dreyfuss is in this film as older Gordy, you know, or the writer's what he's called, but he is pretty much older Gordy, you know,
mhm,
like that's why I said this movie star-studded. And again, this is a movie that had all these actors before they were star-studded actors. Because some of these
definitely.
would go into bigger movies and bigger you know, or bigger things, you know. Unfortunately, we lost River Phoenix not to about what, maybe 6, 8 years after this movie was made?
Uh-huh. Yeah, not very long after for sure.
Yeah, you know, and it's sad to say that because he was an up and coming actor. He was a good actor, and I will admit it, like him
Sneakers? Really?
like him I my thing with him is I do like him as Chris. You know, River
Oh, yeah.
Phoenix played a
Me too.
great Chris. Like I just feel like he's one of those characters, and we'll talk more about him because I figure we're gonna talk about the growth of each character,
Yeah,
a little
for
bit
sure.
more, but he is that one character that has this stereotypical view that people look at him as, but he's trying
Mhm.
to outgrow that stereotypical view, you know? And I don't think you could have gotten that with any other young actor than River Phoenix, you know?
No.
Like, he was great for that role, you know?
Well, and I think it's kinda I was thinking about it like this too. It's a little weird or not weird in hindsight, but, um, he's by far my favorite character, by the way, in this. As far as the 4 boys go, I think Kiefer Sutherland has a great performance in this for how short of a movie it is. But no, I think
Good actor. Uh,
it's a it's definitely a real standout, like you said, a real standout film for River Phoenix. Um, I just can't help I just can't help but think that, like, not far after this, he was gone, and so, especially in the movie when you find out his character, what happens later on in life,
mhm,
it's kinda eerie to think about, I guess. I don't know. I was just I thought of it when I that's how I thought of it when I watched it when I was younger, and then, when I get older, it really, like, stood out to me. It's like, "Wow." And then, like, even at the end, we're not gonna fast forward to it, but, like, even at the end when he's telling you everything about how everyone kind of went on their separate paths and what they became afterwards, and, like, the whole when he fades out, when he's
mhm.
walking away, like, it just gets kinda depressing a little bit, but
You know, that's why I say he was the star of the show, even though he was not the main character of the movie.
no.
And
Well, you go ahead and say that Gordy is right. Well,
oh,
I mean,
Goldie is
duh.
the main
He's
character.
the writer. Yeah, he's the
He's the
writer.
yeah, he's the writer, he's the narrator of
Yeah.
the film. But you that's something I kinda wanna bring up too, if you're okay with this kinda be one of our first points to really bring up, and then I know you
Mhm,
have some points too. And we kinda talked about this off air, is how all the kids what I loved is that Gordy is the only one you get flashbacks for. It
mhm.
is the other ones that you hear from other person's perspectives on on how they look at the other kids. You know, what I know you bring I figured that's why I bring it up because you were a fan of the flashbacks, and I am too. I did enjoy the
Yeah.
flashbacks we got. What was your take on the flashbacks, or what was your favorite parts of the flashbacks?
Well, I just like how you really get to see Gordy and Dennis's relationship and how much he misses Dennis.
Yeah.
Because especially with him when they're at the dinner table and everything, and they're kinda basically they're already treating Gordy like he's nothing. Like, they don't acknowledge him, they don't do anything. Maybe the mom a little bit, but they're talking about football and how Dennis is gonna be, his dad's all like, "He needs to worry about football, not girls, blah, blah, blah." And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Hey, did you hear about Gordy and his and in this like, was it a comic book? I forgot.
No, he
Am
was
I
a
right?
writer. He was just writing papers.
Writer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
papers and stuff for school.
yeah.
Yeah, and just to see him how he was, like, I feel like Dennis was that, like, do what you want to do. Don't do
Mhm.
because you could see, like, Dennis kind of felt forced to do what he was doing. It wasn't like he got to choose it on his own path. And I think
Yeah.
that's something like one of the biggest things with Gordy is that he doesn't want to live the life his parents want for him. He wants to live the life he wants to live, you know? Like, you like, that whole scene, like, I love how he gives, like you said, the dinner table, the giving him the Yankee cap, which is a fun fact, you're wearing the Yankee hat right now,
Mhm.
you
Yeah, I
know?
had my comb somewhere, I think I lost it on the
Yeah. I just feel like it's such an important moment because that's kinda when you see Gordy kinda have that, like, reflection moment, like, "I'm not going to do what Dennis did."
Yeah,
You know, I have to learn from that now and be my own person, you know? And that's why I said, like, you got even talking about the other kids, you got, Chris's outlook or how his stereotypical was from Gordy's dad.
mhm,
You see parts of him that he's smoking a cigarette, the way he's dressed, but it's the whole thing that you hear from Gordy's dad and how he's looked at around the city.
mhm.
And then you hear about his dad, and how he's a drunk.
For Chris, you also get a glimpse of how his family is through his brother Eyeball.
Right.
That's one thing also, it's like that and by the way, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, his brother is a scumbag.
Right.
'Cause, like, if when they especially in that scene at when they find the body and everything, it's like, how are you not the guy's pulling a knife on your brother. How are you not gonna stop that dude?
Yeah.
You'll let him stab your brother? For real? Are we talk are like,
Yeah.
I got so mad watching that.
That's Kiefer Sutherland for you. Like, that's the type of characters he plays. He's an
Man, dude, so unlikable.
but, like, even then, you get Chris's perspective, you get Teddy's point of view about how his
Yeah.
dad is, because you hear what Gordy says about him with his ear, because his dad
Mhm,
put him near a fire, and then you get that whole perspective from the junkyard guy of all people, even though he still looks at him as he's a hero. He stormed the beaches in Normandy. He did all this, people just look at him as this. So, and then you have O'Connell, which is, Vern, but it's more of his insecurity. It's more
mhm.
dealing with all that kind of stuff. Like I told you, that whole lard ass story, I literally thought at first when I first watched it, they were making fun of him because it was like,
He kinda looks like him too.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly kinda what I went off of because it's like his face looked like him. It just like maybe it was a story to motivate him, and then I watched it again, it's like, "Yeah, I don't see it now." But it was like, yeah, that was a kind of a funny part of it, but that whole flashback scenes were just so important for the film, and
Mhm.
John Cusack, you could have not gotten anybody better during that time frame because that was
He's literally in 2 scenes, I think.
yeah, he's only yeah, oh, 3 because I believe
3 scenes.
yeah, 3. He was in a
He would yeah.
yeah, he was yeah, because he had the yeah, because they did the when they were talking about football at the table, and they did something else about football, and then that was when
In the room when he gives him the Yankees hat.
yeah,
Yeah.
but for him to be in this movie, because this is kind of his start for stardom,
Uh-huh.
that was his time frame of him becoming a bigger actor. That's what I said. It was a good choice. Like those scenes, like I don't really have nothing else to say about them. I just really enjoyed those 3 scenes, like just seeing the few scenes we got with him, because it gives you more of a perspective on Gordy. It gives you more of that, like even how the storekeeper, or the not the storekeeper, but the when he goes to the convenience store there to
Yep,
get the food, and how he's
yep.
talking about his brother. It's like, I don't know who I am, kind of thing. It kind of was a wake up call for Gordy. Like, hey, like, who am I? And and then you have that moment with him and Chris where he goes, I'm not going to be a writer. I'm not this. And Chris is the one's like, that's your dad talking. Remember that. It's not you talking. And that's where that whole faulty of, do I get my dad's favor or do I do what I want in my life? And we see what he does because we see throughout the film what he's doing. It's very much telling the story of this adventure.
Like you said, I think for what we got from John Cusack in this was a real standout, and it's kind of the very in comparison to Kiefer Sutherland, because you don't get a lot of scenes with Kiefer Sutherland either,
He's such an
but
ass in this film. He's such an
I
ass.
think he's not in that many scenes, but he does have a lot of screen time, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like, for this that he's in, like, the whole drag race down the that's a move, by the way. Very dangerous what he did.
Don't
He
do it.
should be
Don't
ashamed
do
of
this at
himself.
home, kids. Like that scene
Dude,
when he makes a truck swerve compared to
bro, with logs on the back.
and
Like,
all
it's
the
some
other
Final
car could do is like
Destination stuff.
and all the other car was doing was like, "What the f" and then all of a sudden he just pulled in front.
And he's like,
I
"I
go,
won."
yeah.
Bro,
It's like,
oh my god.
"Dick move."
So good.
Like how they were
I
giving
mean
each other tattoos as well with the whole flipping like little razor blade. I'm like, "Come on."
I mean, what did you think about Kiefer Sutherland in a whole to this? I mean,
Do I think his character was needed in some ways? Yes, because it kind of showcased at the end how much the kids have grown and what they're willing to do.
yeah,
Do did I want more for him? No. I'm not, and I think that's just me being biased because I'm not a Kiefer Sutherland fan. But I just, I think he was needed for the plot. I think he was needed for it. I don't think you could have gotten anybody better to play and act like that other than
100%.
Kiefer. Uh,
He also has that look, right? I feel like,
Kiefer
you
comes
know
off
you
like off kind of moment. Like he's
yeah, like a total, like, bad boy, especially and that's another thing I wanna bring up too is I love the time period of this movie.
well, that's something
Late
I did
late
want to bring up.
50s, right? It's 1959 or something like that.
And I think that was a point I was kind of thinking of too throughout the film is would this movie have worked in a different time frame? I don't think it would have. I think
No, no, I think it just it was like a chef's kiss to the story, like, as far as how like, everything in between the characters that happens is fantastic, the character development is fantastic, but when you set it in that time frame, it just gives it a different feel, and it also gives you a look on how different life was back then.
absolutely.
So,
And I think nowadays you couldn't have this story of them going on an adventure and going like, oh, hey, let's go to the woods. Let's go find the.
yeah,
Everybody's into this now. Everybody's into their technology now.
I
You're going
know.
to have that story nowadays. It would have to be just like what they did, set it in the 50s, 60s time frame and let it play out.
Mhm.
Because I think that's what was so viable for the story too, is that they're all going on their own paths. And that's what made that story even better. Because they even said at the end, time goes by and sometimes that's what happens. Friends come in and out of your life without you even
Yeah.
realizing.
Did you know that Stephen King said himself that this was probably the best adaptation of his work?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is Reiner did go to him a lot for the work, if
Uh-huh.
I'm not mistaken. This is one of the
Mhm.
only directors that actually showed an appreciation to Stephen King and
Mhm.
went, "We appreciate what you've done. I want to get you involved." But like Stand By Me, I'm glad I've heard that before, and I'm glad it is because I've read the book before. See, that's something
Mhm.
I've never mentioned. I have read the book. I've never
Really?
watched the movie. And watching it, I was
And
like,
it's
"Yeah, I can
based
see
it's based on the body, right?
that." Mhm.
Okay.
It's actually a really good book. It's a really good story, and that's why I said the movie did a really good job with it.
Well, you know what I also heard too is, like, I guess this is one of Rob Reiner's favorite movies that he did.
Well, I think would you say this is kind of like his first big hit? Because this was
I
even
think
before.
I think this I'm gonna go ahead and say it, I think this is his masterpiece.
See, I'll
I'm
disagree with
I
you
know
there,
you
but
I know you and that's the thing, and I knew when said that, I'm like, I know that Brandon's
but
for
it
sure not gonna
but it's
yeah.
not the pick that I think you think I was thinking. My favorite all time is going to be A Few Good Men. That's always, and I guess it's time to reveal that is the next movie we're covering. But that's not his masterpiece. His
The
masterpiece to
Princess
me is
Bride?
his masterpiece is The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Like, that's his masterpiece. That's his magnum opus.
I feel like it could go A and B either way, honestly, for that. Like, Stand By and plus they were released, I think, back-to-back years.
Yeah, I will what was it? Stand By Me
Dude,
was
he came out
86?
with he came out with 2 bangers just back to back.
Well, yeah, and, When Harry Met Sally shortly after too. So he had bangers left, right, left. And then he
A
went
trilogy of
yeah,
greatness.
and then it went to A Few Good Men about 3, 4 years later. Um, yeah,
Yeah, because that's in the '90s, right?
yep, that
If
was
you give
early
me
90s. Mhm. I believe that was the year I think Silence of the Lambs won a lot of awards because Jack Nicholson was up against Anthony Hopkins for Best Supporting for that. But, like, to me, I think Stand By Me will always go down as one of his most underrated films. I don't feel
Mhm.
people give it the love it deserves. And like even talking to people about doing this, I was hearing people like, yeah, it's very underrated of his and very underrated story of Stephen King's.
Yeah.
Like
Did we talk about Chris?
we
Right?
talked a
I
little bit
mean,
about Chris and like his importance to the story.
yeah. I know that you had mentioned it off air too that we'll kinda go down the line with the other characters. How did you feel about Teddy Duchamp, played by Corey Feldman? Were you I mean,
I
I know that
I
I wish it could give us a little bit more backstory to him, but I also like the mystery of the whole Burt ear and the whole obsession with war to him is just kind of zany to me.
I I enjoyed his character after the whole treehouse situation.
Mhm.
I enjoyed his scene at the junkyard. I thought that was the most important scene with him. Even the train, like trying to dodge the train, and Chris is like, "Get your ass over here now!" Like like Teddy is always trying to prove. I feel like it's always like a sense of he's trying to prove that he's better. That's why I said I enjoyed his character after the whole treehouse scene because and when they were in the treehouse, he annoyed me, and he did
Yeah.
really bad. Um, but yeah, I would say I probably get it. Like he wasn't my favorite. Like out of the four boys, he was my least favorite out of the four.
Yeah.
But again,
Did you hear that
everybody looks.
Go ahead.
I think everybody looks at it differently though, because it's like I told you too. When you really think about it, I think it's kind of like how we talked about Akira, and here's why I say it this way. When you really watch that movie, there's four different ways you can look at the movie. It's kind of the same way here with Stand By Me. You can look at it at Gordy's perspective. You can look at it at Chris' perspective. But you could also look at it at Teddy's and Vern's. Everybody is different in this film, and everybody can relate to a character. I told you off air, the one I relate to is Vern. Vern
Yeah.
is that insecure. He's doesn't know what's the right move and what's not the right move. And I feel like that's me when you really think about it. That's who I relate to. So seeing him grow meant something to me. I don't know if I would go underneath my mom's house and then try to find all my pennies after she dumped it, but hey, good for them.
That scene is so funny, by the way.
I was looking at when he's in, I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's just sitting there like digging holes and he's just
All the whole
yeah, and then he magically hears of what his brother has to say, and it's just like, okay, like come on, kind of thing. And he's sitting there underneath listening to the whole dead body situation and all that. It's like, okay, you know, but the way they treat him too, like the whole train scene, I could not stop laughing at the train scene for some reason because I just could not stand Jerry O'Connell's crying. Sorry, I'm sorry, and his little running. It makes me laugh every time I see him run. Gordy's sitting there like, "Move your ass!" Like,
Well, you would go I think you were it felt like you were willing to say that Vern is probably your favorite character in this whole
yeah,
movie.
I go Vern and Chris would be the two I relate to the
Yeah.
most, and my two of my favorites. Gordy is important, but I don't feel myself relating to Gordy, even though Gordy does have a lot of that
I
growing.
like Gord's story. Yeah.
Yeah, like Gordy's story is great. The whole sense of don't be what your parents want, you need to be what you want to be. And everybody can relate to that. I think that's what was the whole purpose is he was the catalyst for change. But in reality, it was all the others that you were seeing the changes really surely happen.
Mhm.
Gordy, even though you do see the change, he's the catalyst for the others to change. And like to me, Vern is just one of those characters I really enjoy. But I feel Chris is more the catalyst as well. Because without Chris, I don't think Gordy would have done anything. He would have been there, if that makes sense. Like Gordy
Mhm.
would have been stuck in this whole thing of what his dad wants compared to Chris telling him, be something that you don't think be something more than that. Just like Chris, we know the story of Chris, what happens to him. He gets out of Castle Rock and goes to be a lawyer. Out of all things, out of all the characters, that is the one kid you go, I don't see him as a lawyer, and he became a lawyer.
Mhm. It's crazy. And it's crazy, it's very sad ending that you get with Chris. like I said, when that last when he's telling you about how we after everything, we kind of went our separate ways except for him and Chris. Him and Chris have been friends for a while,
Mhm.
and he said Teddy became a forklift driver?
Yeah.
No, not Teddy, Vern. Vern became a forklift driver, had 4 kids.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. Like, only thing I wish we could have seen, and I get it why they didn't do it, and I'm not sure if they did it in the book. It's like I said, it's been a while, but I would have liked to seen them all at Castle Rock
Mhm.
one last time together.
Yeah. Yeah, kinda see what like because you don't get a lot the town at all.
Because you get the aspect of what he's saying about him, like, hey, it's kind of a sense like, oh yeah, we know this and this about him, but we don't know everything about him. Like, oh, he heard about Teddy going to prison, or he's been in and out of prison here and there, and just doing odd jobs. You know, to me, it kind of would have been nice to kind of seen the kids go to maybe like his funeral or something to kind of
Mhm,
showcase where they're at in life, and we know Gordy became the writer. He became the author that he was supposed to be, and like you said, Vern had the 4 kids and a lovely wife, and he's a, forklift driver, or just like and that's the whole thing. I just wish we would gotten a little bit more on that context.
I feel like it follows the theme of the mysteries that you don't get in this movie,
Mhm.
'cause that kind of follows throughout the whole story, I feel like, with certain things, even, like, not getting the kn you only get that perception of Gordy's life at home, but not really you get more of a visual, and then you have to kind of visualize for yourself when it comes to Chris or Teddy. Um, the only scene we get with Vern as a flash and I guess technically it is a flashback, right, with the whole hole digging underneath. That's how you find out about the whole body missing and everything, so
It's the way he's doing it too. It's the way I just cannot look at that scene and now look at Jerry O'Connell and go, "Yeah, that's Vern." Like, that's exactly what
I
I'm
don't think we explained too for context. Vern's character is, he hid a jar of pennies and he created this, he hid it under or he buried it underneath his porch, and then he went and drew this treasure map for it. Well, what happened was his mom ended up cleaning out his room and threw the treasure map away. So, here this kid is underneath the porch, probably dig I would count at least maybe 20 to 30 holes underneath this little boy. It
You
is so
got
funny.
no dig some holes,
By the way,
broken hand and a song.
I wanted to point out, and I thought it was a really cool shot, is in that sequence right there when I think it's his brother and his brother's friend talking about the missing kid,
Yeah,
and you could see, Vern's point of view when he's looking out, and it's kind of like this diamond shape from the
yeah,
I don't know, if you go back and look at it, it's really cool, and you could just see the 2 guys talking, and it's like this perfect little diamond shape from that. Um, that's another thing I really wanted to bring up is I I love the cinematography in this
The
movie.
the
Like
cinematography, I have 2 scenes for you that I enjoy. When they're going on that bridge
uh-huh,
shot was beautiful. Like,
yeah,
but the other shot I really like is when they have the fight that Chris pulled Teddy off the train track because he wanted to
mhm,
dodge it. That scene, just seeing some of the fight take place through the intersections of the train, and I kinda brought that up with A River Runs Through It, is you have those shots too like that were
mhm,
phenomenal. But I agree with
yeah,
you. The cinematography in this film I feel is very slept on in this
yeah.
film. Yeah. Like,
It's something you don't, like, really realize that it's taking place until you're like, "Oh, shit," like, "That was awesome." Like, the way like, even, like I was a big fan of it was the costumes, like, the kid's attire in this, it just kinda the way they dressed told a little bit about themselves.
yeah,
I don't know, it's just that's the way I perceived it, and I think it also helped that for me, I realized it more and more I watched the movie.
yeah.
So, um you got Teddy that's almost in, like, army clothes, by the way. He's, like, dressed up in, kinda like a off-green shirt, like what I'm
OD
wearing.
green, yeah, an OD green
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah, and then Vern's all dressed to the gills in, like, a
Like in
nice
a
pull-up.
polo, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Chris is in a
Chris
jeans
is
and
in a
t-shirt.
simple white tee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Gordy's like it just he's, like, really the only normally dressed kid. I guess you'd say Vert is too. Everyone is in
But I
their
think
own
that's
in
also purpose too, because his parents aren't really part of his life right now. Because
yeah,
I think something else we haven't really mentioned either is that why we say flashbacks too is Dennis died in a car accident.
mhm,
Um, and that's the whole thing is that's why his parents are distraught through the whole film. But just the way I wanted to sit here and say it, but I'm gonna say it. What an ass of a dad that Gordy had.
I know.
What a that dude
Yeah.
to me.
Dad of the year over here.
Oh, that. He's not even the dad of the year.
I'm just
He's
kidding.
gonna get the Razzie for the worst, the dad of the
Gonna get the
year. He's
Razzie,
getting the Razzie. That
not the razzle dazzle.
what a dick. To me, if you lost a kid, you would think, okay, Gordy and him, Dennis were close. You would think you would come for him too. And just the way he acts like, why can't you have friends like Dennis? Why
Oh,
can't
I
you do this?
know.
And then that whole nightmare sequence when they're in the woods and he goes, it should have been
Should've
you.
been you.
And it's like, damn. I'm like,
You know what I got from that? Watching Dewey Cox my whole life, walk hard, not walk hard. The wrong kid died.
yeah, that's the whole thing. I was like, wow, what an ass. And then his mom just doesn't care. I get it. The mom's distraught too. But man, I was like, damn, that sucks. The only thing I will crap about this film on, and it's nothing bad, I did kind of feel it lacked a score. I did not like the score. Like there was moments you had songs like score, but it wasn't big like the soundtrack. The soundtrack was great. You had, Yakety Yak, you had, Lollipop,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had, Stand By Me, you had all these other songs that were
By
great.
the way, that's the whole s I know the movie's called Stand By Me, but
It
when they input the song, it's perfect at that whole ending and by the way, we haven't brought it up yet, and I'm surprised we haven't, I'm sorry we haven't, is Richard Dreyfuss as Old Gordy.
right, and we brought that up in the cast that he was Old Gordy, but we haven't really talked about, like, his scene.
Like, his narrating is great too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why he's got that great voice.
What was it? At least you knew that one like you didn't know The Grinch with, Anthony Hopkins, but, you know,
Oh, dude, I am so embarrassed. I am so
it's like,
embarrassed.
how can
You
you
know what's
not
even
know
more
that's
funny
Anthony
you know
Hopkins?
what's even more funny about that is this whole time growing up, this movie's what, existed for 25 years? I just realized after 23 years that Anthony Hopkins is in The Grinch, and how did I not realize it from watching all these
We were
times that
watching
he's
it the
literally in the opening credits? Like, I always pay attention to the credits for the most part.
I I would just say the score. I just kind of felt like it lacked a score. And this is a movie that could have worked well with the score, I think, in my eyes at least. Like, never have I ever watched a movie of Stephen King's and not think the score is not good. This is the only time I'm like, it lacked a score to me. It
It lacked the
wasn't
score, but I honestly feel like with how short of a movie this was and the soundtrack that was given, I think the soundtrack did a really good job for basically covering the movie music-wise.
and I give you that. Like the soundtrack was good. You got all the I'm still judging it because it didn't give me the Runaround Sue, and I like that song a lot from the movie. So that's what I say. I don't really have any other dislikes about the film. I thought the film was great, but I also
Yeah.
give it that point that it's not a movie that I don't like. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's not a movie I could sit there and rewatch. It's a movie that it's meant to teach you a lesson and you move on with your life, kind of thing. Like I don't ever see myself rewatching it, but I'm not gonna give it a bad ranking if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like, what's your take on that? Like,
I yeah, no, I to be honest with you, I think this is a very rewatchable movie in my opinion. I I could listen to this movie, you know, not even have to watch it, just listen to it and put it in my ear and do something around the house or whatever. And I know where I'm at in the story.
I could just
Um,
imagine you and Mrs. Petty, Lord ass, and it's like, what did you just call me? You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. The whole lard ass scene. He drinks that whole bottle of
that,
castor oil.
that's the only thing we haven't really talked about was the lard ass scene. Like,
Man, dude, can we say that that is probably one of the best scenes in the whole freaking movie, man?
oh, it's one of the funnier scenes because, like, I could just because it's Gordy telling the story. It shows you how creative he is, and
Yeah.
they had that moment where he's like, they're like, "Yeah, Lord ass," and then you have the host, "Huh, don't take, don't, this is a serious competition, Lord ass," and he sits there and starts laughing too, and then he's just like, "Next," like, and then he plotted this whole revenge to get back at everybody, and he puked on the one dude's face, and then it just puked all over the it was, and he's just in there.
Yeah.
I told you, I literally thought that was Vern and like them making fun of Vern at first. Like it truly because it looked like Vern when you really look at him. Like
I love Vern's question at the end where he's like, "Did Lardass have to pay to get in?" He's like, "No, they just let him in." It's like, "Oh, okay, cool."
like what? It's like, okay. like but that's what I said. Like there's really no other dislikes about the film. What were there
No,
dislikes you
I
had
I
about
just
the film?
I don't have any dislikes at all. I think there wasn't one bad performance in this movie.
Absolutely.
Everyone did their part,
Other than Gordon's
shined where they
dad.
needed to shine. It was just I think it was a perfectly balanced movie. You didn't get a lot of everyone. It was perfect to intertwined everything the way they did. Um, I when you were talking about Kiefer Sutherland, I felt like the scenes we got with him were as impactful as they could be, and I think they made for basically it was more of just building him up as a character, but also building him up with his gang and how they were gonna go try to find that body. Because that's one thing we also haven't talked about too is them finding the body and that whole last standoff we get from him. I think that's like the climax of the story.
I agree with you there. I feel like with this kind of showcases how much they've actually learned about themselves and what they're
Mhm.
willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And, I feel like that was like when you get to the whole venture part and they're like, oh, hey, we're going to split off. That's where I told you it kind of fell a little fast because it's like, wait a minute. Where did we just go from here to here? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bad thing. So I don't want to knock it. That's not what I'm doing. But yeah, that whole standoff between them and like you said, how much of a piece of the one kid's brother was because he was just gonna allow Kiefer Sutherland to
He's
just
gonna
do
watch
all
his
bad
brother
things.
get stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come on. And yeah, that whole scene got a lot, but then because that's something else I know we haven't talked about is that Chris brought a gun with him. And he shows Gordy, which was one of my favorite scenes, like, is it loaded? And he goes, no, it's not. And he sits there, he pulls the trigger,
That
bam!
back alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He freaks out and the woman comes out. Who's lining up cherry bombs out here? You that gets me all the time. But when you see Gordy pull out the gun at the very end, that's when gets serious. That he's like, I am not afraid to pull this trigger if I need to.
Mhm.
Don't tempt me because you go after him, I'm coming after you. And then that's when he backs off. Or how did he say? He's like, or
He's
you
like, "What, you gonna shoot all of us?" He's like, "No, Ace, just you."
then you get that scene, and then you get them to go back to town. And they had that moment where all of them are in that was one of my favorite shots of the film, is that they're all going different streets from Castle Rock, other than
Mhm.
Gordy and Chris. Because you see Teddy take his own path, and then that's when you hear them say, well, you know, sometimes it's what happens, friends come in and out of your life. And
Yeah.
then Vern goes his own way, and then Chris and Gordy take off the same way. And we know that because I feel like that's the only one they've kind of made us feel like there's still some connection between the two of them is Gordy and Chris. And
Well, you get that whole really impactful scene with them by the fire
yeah,
talking about the whole, like, lunch money thing where it was kind of a hoax with the teacher, and the teacher basically made Chris out to be who he is because of his family's reputation and, like, oh, like, he was just an easy cop out to stealing this money, but she really stole the money from him and then bought a dress with it?
exactly. That's the whole thing with that is that campfire scene was great too. There wasn't really any scene that I did not like.
Did you think that I was gonna bring it up. the scene where Gordy is on the train tracks and the deer comes up to him.
Mhm.
Did you get any kind of, like, or I should say, do you think it had any kind of impact on anything? Because I was thinking this, I'm like, what if it's, like, his brother sending a sign or something like that from the after get hear me out here, just as a spiritual thing, like, or is it, like, something I guess my thing is like when it happens and then he brings up the point to, "I've never mentioned it before until just now. I was gonna say something to them that morning, but I just never found the time to do so." I don't know, it just I feel like they put it there for a reason, and I don't know, maybe I was it was just like there was some kind of meaning to it, you know what I mean?
You know, I was researching that too because I was kinda curious about that as well, to see if there was a meaning towards the deer. I did find something, I'm trying to figure it out here. I'm trying to find where I had it because there was a meaning to it.
Wait, he made a point to bring it up too, you know what I mean? I mean, you see you see what happens, and I think it's really cool, honestly.
So I found it. The deer scene represents pure, untouched innocence, and it's placed deliberately in the story. Up to the point I'm reading this on a full website. Up to that point, the boy's journey is filled with fear, bravado, and talk about death. They're chasing a body, telling dirty jokes, and pretending they're tougher than they are. When Gordy quietly sees the deer, everything stops. No one else is there. No one makes fun of him. No one even knows it happened. The moment belongs only to Gordy, and that's the point. The deer symbolizes the version of childhood that can't survive being shared.
Hmm.
Once you point it out, it disappears. It mirrors Gordy himself, sensitive, observant, and overlooked. So that is your meaning. I was like, I know I've seen that today when I was looking up because I thought that too. It's like, is there a secret meaning? And
No, I love it. I think it's a cool little I mean, there's so many that's the thing is, like, with how small or I guess with how short of a movie this is, it's just crazy to me of how much stuff you can pick out of it,
well,
if
that's
that
what
makes
I said.
sense.
All of them have a way that people can look at life. And I think that's what's so, because all the kids are relatable one way or another. Like,
Mm,
but the whole thing of them coming from a childhood and growing into adulthood was the main impact of the story. That was the whole purpose of this story. And seeing it now as an adult and only read the book, it hits harder. It does. But yeah, I have no other complaints about this movie. I don't have anything really else to talk about, and I feel it's time to move to our rankings. Pat, I'm gonna let you go first. I usually well,
why do I feel I always go first.
okay,
No, you
fine,
should
I'll
go first.
go first. Okay, you'll probably be happy because I never give any of your films a good ranking, but I will give this movie a good ranking. I will get this an 8 out of 10. This is a
Oh,
movie that I
okay.
do enjoy. I don't feel I can sit there and rewatch if I rewatch it, it might be a few years down the line. It's not a movie I could probably rewatch on a repeat, but
Mhm.
it tells a good story. It's a meaningful story. I have never had an issue with any Stephen King film that's not horror. Shawshank, Stand By Me Now, or Stand By Me, I put now because I just watched it, and even Green Mile. I have never had an issue with any of his movies outside the perspective of not horror. I think Stephen King showcased that. Rob Reiner showcases that with his film or the whole direction of this film and everything. It just is a really good film. So I give it an
Right
8 out
on,
of
man.
10.
I'm really glad you liked it. It means a lot to me. I always feel good when I can recommend a movie to you and you actually like it. I know I did that with Bottle Rocket and a few others,
Mhm.
but it's good to I'm glad you like this, man. It's a great movie, and I think 100 years from now, this movie will be talked about. And that goes to say too with other Rob Reiner movies. I mean, Princess Bride's I feel like this is A and B master. I think this film is a perfect depiction on how friendships develop in our youth, man. Um, and how quickly they last.
Mhm.
Uh, you don't realize their importance until, later in life, and you kinda look back at the times that you had with them and everything, I think one more thing I wanted to bring or not even bring up, but just kinda end it on this is it's a perfect ending when he talks about, you know, "I never had friends like the ones I had when I was a child."
Mhm.
Jesus, does anyone? You know? Like, and he doesn't even say it, you just read it on his teleprompter, and then he gets up, turns the thing off, walks out, goes and finally tends to his kids that have been waiting patiently for him this whole movie.
Did that 5
Um,
minutes ago.
yeah, it's said earlier. Um, and then the whole dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun dun dun. You know, it's just man, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it right now. Um, Man, this movie is so good. I'm gonna give it a 9.1.
Yeah.
So that's it'll always be a watchable movie to me. It'll always be a movie I'll watch with my kid or my kids when they're of age. It's just I think if you're a fan of cinema in general, I think you should check this movie out because I mean, this should be on like one of the top 100 movies of all time, in my opinion.
It
I think I think for what the meaning is behind it,
yeah.
and again, it's also a depiction of one of the greatest authors of all time.
One of them. I
Don't let
wouldn't put
you know,
his there as an overall author, but he's a good author. I wouldn't put him in my top, like, not Mount Rushmore.
I'm not saying Mount Rushmore.
You're saying top 25 at least?
I'm not saying any top anything. I'm just saying
He's
he's
a
one of the
great.
best writers we have had in recent time.
Oh, yeah, I
Okay, I'll
agree.
just say it like that.
Okay, I'll accept that answer, and I'll just leave it
Yeah.
at that.
You always get the nitty-gritty with these
Yes,
kind of
I
things.
do, 'cause I was like when you said, I was like, "Really? This is what you're going with?" Like, I don't know where to
Well,
put him because he has a lot of hit and misses too, but, I think this is a great way to end out the podcast. Fans, let us know what you guys think about Stand By Me. What's your take on the kids? Who do you relate to the most? What'd you think about Kiefer Sutherland's character? What'd you think about Gordy's narration through the film? We wanna hear that in the comments. You can always check out J4F Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Remember, if you like this content, you want more of it, remember to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at J4F Podcast. Without further ado, I turn it over to Patty B to take us out.
yeah, thank you guys for standing by us. Thank you, B-Dog, as always. I'm glad we got to talk about this masterpiece of a movie. And remember, we do it just for flair.